Hello, thank you for joining us. My name is Donavan, and this is the review preview for the month of August and September. Our August book this month was Don't Hurt People and Don't Take Their Stuff, a Libertarian manifesto by Matt Kibbe. And our September book is, let's see here, And the Whole Mountain Burned. Obviously, left the cover off of here, that's what we get. This is by Ray McPadden. So we will start with Don't Hurt People and Don't Take Their Stuff. But first we'll start, why am I dressed like this? The review preview is generally a classy affair. We have the jazz music that goes on in the front. We usually have a sweater on. We have a fireplace picture somewhere. Why am I dressed like this? I also dressed like this last month in a similar way. The reason is we're talking a lot about liberty. And when I think about liberty, it's a down and dirty concept to me. It's not hoity-toity. It's not high class. Down and dirty. It's liberty is for everyone. So I'm dressed the way that I dress normally. This is what I wore to work today. This is how regular people dress. Liberty is for everybody, so that is why I am dressed this way. I cannot personally test for what the September-October review preview will hold for us, but we will see how this book strikes me. So don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. Let's start here. I like this book a lot. We did 3 live streams this month. We were solid with it, so you can go back and check those out on Instagram. I like this book. And I think at the end of the day, the issue that I had with it is a personal one. And for that, I cannot fault Matt Kibbe because he didn't write this book for me. He wrote it for an enormous group of people. Ideally, people who are just, it seems to me, ideally people who are just kind of getting introduced to the idea of libertarianism, who are maybe on the cusp, who don't feel at home in either of the 2 traditional parties anymore, and they're looking for something else. So the personal issue that I have with the book is that I just feel it is not of its time. This book was published in 2014, which, as we remember, was 2 years before the election that changed all of our lives for forever, right? When Donald Trump came into office, and nothing will ever be the same from that point. So I think prior to that, when this book was written, I think it was great. I think it fit for that time and addressed a lot of the major issues. Like we all read it, or even if you just listen to the live streams, Obamacare, the Patriot Act, very serious, big issues of the time it covered. So I think for then, it was a perfect book. Not perfect. I think it was very, very good. But 2016 and the 6 years since then, the last decade, have changed this country maybe more than any of us will see in our lifetime. I obviously don't know because the future is what the future is going to be. But there's no way for Matt Kibbe to take that into account. So I don't think that this book holds up to the way that the country looks now. And I don't know that anybody could have written a book at that time that would have taken into account the things that we've seen over the last 6 years. That being said, I think that the 7 rules for liberty that Matt Kibbe lays out are a great starting point. Specifically if you're talking about between people. And I will break that down a little more. So we'll go over the 7 rules one more time because they're very simple and very quick, and I think they're great. There's 6 rules. I'm sorry, I said 7 this whole time. Number 1, don't hurt people. Number 2, don't take people's stuff. Number 3, take responsibility. Number 4, work for it. Number 5, mind your own business. Number 6, fight the power. Those are all great rules. I think they're fantastic. That's for interpersonal relationships. That's fantastic, right? Again, we'll start on the interpersonal. There are 330 million people in this country. And my concern with the interpersonal relationships is that there are too many people in this country already that have base principles that don't even align with the title of the book of Don't Hurt People and Don't Take Their Stuff, right? Those people are actively victimizing the people in this country who either do or have the potential to be liberty-minded, right? And the deeper issue within that is that those people who are or could be liberty-minded have been made defenseless by a government who is choosing to absolve itself of one of its few actual responsibilities of keeping those people safe. So that's where my faith in the idea of even minarchism starts to fall away. And I don't see why we would even lean on a government in a limited fashion that is showing and proving to us continuously that it has an inability to hold up on its most base of responsibilities of defending the people who it has made defenseless and made wait for it to defend them. So what is minarchism? Minarchism is the idea that a government should exist, but it should really be the smallest government possible. And you just kind of put very basic responsibilities into it if you're talking about like national defense and trade, things like that. Those are like the kind of base responsibilities that people would put into a government. And I've referenced that a lot in kind of the competing ideas between minarchism and anarchism, because it's kind of like such a fine line, but it can make such a huge difference in application. So the issue that I have past that, there is a potential, and I talked to Colin about this, and it's because this book is relatively short. So like I said, I'm sure that Matt Kibbe, even just by virtue of him having his own podcast, he's got much more to say about liberty than just this. So I am certain if he were here and I were to ask him about this, he would have a deeper answer to it. So all I can do is pontificate because he's not here. So perhaps this book leaves the door open for that type of personal defense or public defense to be privatized, for that responsibility to be taken from the government and for it to be privatized. So assuming that is the case, that this book does leave the door open for personal public defense to be privatized and the responsibility to be taken away from the government, I struggle to see how fewer people standing up for us on a federal level will better represent and execute in the name of liberty when so many people are begging to be governed harder, right? These two things just don't equate for me. An issue that I have past there when we're talking about the actual minimalization of the government, trying to make it smaller. The federal government, right, while it is made up of people, has become so large that it has become effectively an entity within itself. And we have seen, I know this is kind of a loaded term, but the deep state of the intelligence communities, the Department of Justice, the two-party system that works solely to keep power within itself and to keep changing power back and forth. It doesn't actually work to make anybody's lives better except for the people that are in the party itself, and they just want to keep it going back and forth to keep making it look like the game is maybe going to benefit somebody else. The monster that is our federal government is on it seeks to retain and grow its power, and I am unsure to what extent that government can actually be undone and for us to retain peaceful lives. Maybe it's because I'm young, maybe it's because I've not been in the politics game for that long, but I have a very difficult time trying to actually picture and conceptualize how we as a society would just strip pieces of the government away and no one's lives would get markedly worse as a result of the government trying to retain that power. And I'm not sure what that says. Maybe that's just a nihilistic outlook on this, and I will address that at the end. But the idea of a small government is just difficult for me to conceptualize because we have to get there, right? It's not like we can just wake up one day and the government is all of a sudden 10% of the size that it once was, and we don't have to worry about it. Somebody, if we're talking about sticking within this particular system, somebody has to become president and start taking those executive branches away, start taking away and just disbanding the alphabet soup agencies. And there is no way that the members of Congress, even with the liberty-minded ones that we have in there, or even if we have more liberty-minded ones there's no way the rest of the system is just going to let that happen. That, to me, underlines exactly what I'm talking about, the proportion, the monster that the federal government has become, that even if it is in the best interest of the people for a president to come in and to start disbanding these offices, the rest of the government would not allow it to happen because it would be too much power to be removed from Washington itself. This brings us to kind of my final point. As far as the government goes, this is hilarious to say. As far as the government goes, like it's such a simple thing. Here comes the bold statement. I feel that we are better off looking for reasons why the government should exist. The evidence that the government isn't here to help us is stacking up continuously against them. The shit show that is Obamacare, even if we just talk about some things in this book, right? The shit show that is Obamacare, assault weapons ban, because that's a more common one. The continued attempts to dig deeper into your personal life, your data, your information, to track you all the time. The horrific spending that is ruining our currency, our country, and it's dooming our children to have no benefits in the future. Even if we just look at the last week, we're talking about paying off people's student loan debts, and that's only We're not going to make this too crazy partisan because it's the exact same thing as what we saw 2 years ago, paying off all of these companies, these enormous corporations in stimulus to allow them to survive when we didn't request that they were prepared themselves for an emergency in the past. We just doled out trillions and billions of dollars to them like it was no big deal. We're doing the exact same thing to people. Oh, what? 2 months before an election? That's weird. Isn't that interesting? These people don't care about you, and they're showing you that every single day. If we are going to continue in this system, we need to look for reasons why, not just accept and assume that this is the best way to go. If this system continues the way that it goes, our children will have nothing left. We may have nothing left. I don't know enough to try and draw timelines for the next 10 years and this and this. I'm not going to make predictions like that, but you can see how difficult this is getting. It's not going to get better if we don't change the way our government works. I'm just going to put it out there. We should be formally withdrawing our presumed consent from our already illegitimate government until it illustrates to us that it has a reason to exist. And it's at this point that I started to really agree with this book, right? The government will not save us, nor does it care. It is not the answer, and it never has been, and it never will be. Corporations propped up and in cahoots with that exact same government only care about you as far as your dollar goes. When you don't have anything else to give to them, they also don't care about you. They make you feel like they do. They have fantastic mascots, and they treat their employees good, or they tell you they do. They make things better. We have unions. We have this. They don't care about you. When you don't have any more money, they don't care about you. The hope that survives in this country exists in the people and in the communities that we are creating to survive and to thrive. We need to make a long-term commitment, just like Matt Kibbe says. We need to make a long-term commitment to ourselves and to each other to do everything that we can to preserve liberty for all of these people. The government, like I said, has shown us over and over again, it does not want to help us. It has no interest in making your life better unless you are going to do exactly what it says, follow all the rules, and kiss the boot and kiss the ring and lick it, and it's going to be great. They don't care about you. And again, Kibbe says in here that we need to stop believing what they say, right? He talks about the revolving door and the commercials, and it beats you down because they call you and they text you and they say, we can help you, just give us some dollars, just give us your vote, and eventually you capitulate, even though you know they've shown you in the past they're not going to help you, but you still vote for them because they beat you down. We've got to be done with this. This is a reading to help underline the long-term relationship that I was talking about and that Kibbe talks about in this book. This is from page 221. The difference between them and us is simple. We're always in it for the long haul. Our proposition, contra the typical political pickup lines, is for a long-term relationship, a true fidelity to certain values and an unwavering commitment to each other. Why? Because one-night stands never work out, and our individual liberties cannot be defended by a single act or better-behaved politicians. We know that politicians respond to voter demand. Tangible expressions of consumer sentiment can also change the behavior of government bureaucrats, Republican precinct captains, members of school boards, and even Fortune 500 corporate CEOs. So it is not enough to be steadfast to ideas. It is clearly never enough to show up once every couple of years on the first Tuesday in November. The days after Election Day matter more because success at the ballot box can't translate into good public policy without the consistent demands of a constituency of economic freedom. This is Public Choice 101. One-night stands may achieve electoral success, but politicians will cheat on you when left to their own devices once they get to Washington, D.C. There are just too many temptations there, too many offers they can't refuse. Okay, so I know, if you're listening to the show, even if you just listened to this review preview, I know it sounds nihilistic, and maybe even like I don't believe that a long-term liberty-based deal is possible. But I exhibit this faith I have every single time I come to do this show. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe the principles of liberty were the right way to go. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that we could beat the programming that people have in them to teach them that liberty is the way to go. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that. I absolutely believe that. But that's the hurdle. It is the programming. That is it. We've addressed this on the show in previous review previews and many of our content, many different kinds of our content. We are programmed from the time we are children by this government to believe what they are feeding us, to believe that liberty is not the way to go, that we need to lean on a larger government for us to be happy. You have to be deprogrammed if you are 23 like I was when we started this, or what Colin was 31, or if you're 45, if you're 17, you have to be deprogrammed before you can accept that liberty is the way to go. So this is my last reading, and it is going to kind of underline the long-term deal that I was talking about and highlight why I still think that's possible. It's going to reach back to revolutionary times, bring that forward, combine with what I just said, kind of explain why I still think it's possible. It's a little bit of a long reading, but it's worth it. Early on in the research for this book, I found a great little essay by An American Guesser, published in 1775. The real author is none other than Benjamin Franklin. If Thomas Jefferson was the idealist, and George Washington the leader, James Madison the architect, Samuel Adams the community organizer, then Franklin would have been the Yoda of the founding generation. But he was also a journalist who had a way of translating deeply held values into a good story. This particular one is an allegory about the rattlesnake. I recollected that her eye excelled in brightness, that of any other animal, and that she had no eyelids. She may therefore be esteemed an emblem of vigilance. She never begins an attack, nor, when once engaged, ever surrenders. She is therefore an emblem of magnanimity and of true courage. As if anxious to prevent all pretensions of quarreling with her, the weapons with which her nature has furnished her, she conceals in the roof of her mouth, so that, to those who are unacquainted with her, she appears to be a most defenseless animal. And even when those weapons are shown and extended for her defense, they appear weak and contemptible. But their wounds, however small, are decisive and fatal. Conscious of this, she never wounds till she has generously given notice, even to her enemy, and cautioned him against the danger of treading on her. Franklin believed that the rattlesnake reflected a strong picture of the temper and conduct of America. Mind your own business. Don't hurt others. If attacked, never back down. Fight the power when tread upon. 'Tis curious and amazing to observe how distinct and independent of each other the rattles of this animal are, and yet how firmly they are united together, so as never to be separated by breaking them to pieces. One of those rattles singly is incapable of producing sound, but the ringing of 13 together is sufficient to alarm the boldest man living. Franklin, speaking to Americans struggling to come together in common purpose against a grave external threat, anticipates the profound strength of closely knit communities that respect the individual rights of their constituent members. Together, in voluntary association, we can accomplish great things. The rattlesnake is solitary and associates with her kind only when it is necessary for their preservation. In winter, the warmth of a number together will preserve their lives, while singly they would probably perish. The power of fascination attributed to her by a generous construction may be understood to mean that those who consider the liberty and blessings which America affords, and once come over to her, never afterwards leave her, but spend their lives with her. As you may have guessed, my new tattoo is a rattlesnake. It says, "Join or die." Like Joel and many millions of other newly engaged Americans, I'm all in. Ben Franklin and his partners in liberty were all in too. They bet it all on the idea. An idea few experts believed would work. They signed their John Hancock on that parchment in defense of the idea that individuals are free, that free individuals do not serve government ends, and that governments exist only to the extent that we, the stakeholders, permit it so. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. George Washington, in his inaugural proposal to each of us, offered that the preservation of the sacred fire of liberty and the destiny of the Republican model of government are justly considered as deeply, perhaps as finally staked on the experiment entrusted to the hands of the American people. He was seeking your hand in a long-term relationship, right? He was asking us all to choose the burden of commitment with full knowledge that it wouldn't always be easy, that the weight of responsibility for successful relationship falls on your shoulders first. The fight for liberty is a burden that requires eternal vigilance. You have to work at it. You will be there for liberty in good times and in bad, even if the IRS targets your efforts to gather your neighbors in peaceful protest or punishes you for petitioning your government representatives for redress of grievances. Some extraordinary soul might have to commit to keep speaking out for equal treatment under the law even when faceless, gray-suited bureaucrats embedded deep within the FBI deem you the most dangerous Negro in America. You might be targeted simply because you stood up and spoke out, calling for all Americans to be judged based on the content of their character. You, too, may have to pledge everything, including your life, your fortune, and your honor. Our fight, unlike politics, is all about the long term.
Can we continue to build community that will be there for the long haul? Can we come together as a beautiful mess of individual aspirations bonded by a shared set of values? New technologies and the decentralization of news and information are shifting power away from Washington insiders to citizens, and this paradigm shift is an indirect conflict with Beltway efforts to reconsolidate power and control information and behavior from the top down. But try as they might, I don't think they can stop us from reclaiming what is rightly ours. Isn't this exactly the American way? Bottom-up government based on the rule of law, originating from engaged, ever-vigilant citizens, channeled through an accountable legislature to the chief executive's desk. We are the shareholders. We don't believe in czars, governance by midnight order, or the expansive power of the executive branch. It doesn't matter who the president may be, he or she will always report to us. The weight of liberty is a burden. It's a lifetime commitment, but the upside is so awesome. Fucking base, Skibby. Fucking base, Skibby. Fucking base, Skibby. That's what I'm saying.
Dude goes out hard.
I had issue, and then I finished, and I was like, God damn it. You get it. You actually get it. You fucking get it. So that's it. We saw it. He gets it. That's it. We saw it. He gets it. He gets it. He's there. You heard me through all the live streams. I just don't know that he gets it. I'm just not sure that he understands. He fucking gets it. This book is just made for its time, right? These concepts are still true. This still exists. We've talked about many times. It depends what your choices should be. The path that you have depends on what your goal is, right? If your goal is to preserve this nation, not necessarily as it is, but the core principles of liberty that it was based on, this is the way to go. Build communities that agree with what you are talking about, liberty-based, and spread those ideas everywhere, because everyone can benefit from that. I am dressed this way. I am dressed as my normal person because liberty is for everyone. Matt Kibbe knows that. I know that. Colin knows that. Yodi knows that. Chloe knows that. We all know that. Liberty is for everybody because it benefits everybody, for you to be able to choose what you want to do, for you to be able to choose what's best for you, your family, everyone around you is better off with liberty. That was fire. Okay, let's get into the preview portion of this book. The September book is And the Whole Mountain Burned by Ray McPadden. Why did I choose this book? Because it's about the global war on terror, and the global war on terror started because of September 11th. Duh, of course. Of course, that's why we're here. So, that's why this book, the author, Ray McPadden, see if we can't find out the publisher. See here. It says Center Street Hatchet Book Group, Center Street Publishing, and 2018 Hatchet Group Book Club. So there you go. And it was published in 2018. Let's see. And it is dedicated to all the infantrymen and my daughter, Lupine, don't marry one of us. That's kind of sad. That's like such a consistent message, though, from people who serve, especially in capacities like this. I should note, I thought, when I picked this book, I thought it was a true story because I recognized Ray McPadden's name. Ray McPadden, if I remember from the Dusk River correctly, he has the Medal of Honor, Purple Heart at the very least. So he's a decorated war hero. That's why I recognized his name, is because he's from the Global War on Terror. That's my war from, sounds terrible. I never served. It's not my war, but that is of my age. So that is the one that I generally know the most about. So that is why I recognized his name. I thought it was his story. It is a story that he wrote based on his time there. This is a story about trying to find a particular terrorist named the Egyptian. So, page and pace. This book is, let's see here, we're doing it, 276 pages. We will bust out this calculator so we can find out what the pace is. There's 30 days in September. Calculator, 276 divided by 30. That gives us 9.2 pages a day. Not bad. A little bit higher than we had last time. The Don't Hurt People and Don't Take Their Stuff was like just over 7. So it's a little more, putting a little bit more pressure on you. We're getting closer to 300, but I believe you guys can do it, especially after Rubicon, stuff like that. We've done more. We've done like 11, 12 pages. You guys can do this. So I think this is going to be really good.
It's September 11th. You can at least, do 9.5 pages a day.
People still do all the fucking stairs and shit. You can at least read 9 pages a day for September 11th. Do it for the firefighters. Do it for the firefighters. Jesus Christ. Okay, let's talk about the live streams. That's cancelable right there. I like it. That's cancelable. Let's hear it. We'll talk about the live streams. We're going to have one on the 13th the 20th. We will see about the 27th. That's cutting it a little close to the end of the month. I don't like to have one too close to the end of the month because these come out on the 1st. So we'll for sure have 2 next month. We'll see about a 3rd one. I also don't like doing too early. And to be candid, I have a fantasy draft on the 6th. Can't swing it. Can't do it. Can't swing a live stream that day as well, along with the fantasy draft. We're getting close to football season. I can't swing it. I'll read 9 pages a day, but I can't do a live stream after fantasy draft. Not even for 9/11. So let's do a short reading in this book, and we'll move on. All right. This is page 141. The delinquent squad fell in line after a few minutes. Shane yanked his charging handle and set off, a foot so encumbered. The newts kinked up moon dust as they streamed from camp, creating the impression of a great army on the move, but they were far from that. They were just one platoon, dogged by a flock of nasty crows. They passed a rock formation crowned with spires like the broken masts of a ghost ship. Shane rounded a bend. He heard the enemy through his walkie-talkie. The Mooj reported the platoon's dust cloud, but it didn't sound like an attack was at hand. The newts halted in a row of terraces that staircased up from the river. Ducking into a crevice, Shane scanned the hills. Billy wandered by, picking red flowers that grew among the weeps in the terrace walls. Billy was singing a pop song. Shane didn't know the song's name, but he knew the chorus, and Billy was butchering it. Corporal Austin heard it too. He said, "Billy, you aren't singing it right. Now shut the fuck up." With that, I want to thank everybody for watching this review preview. This has been fantastic. This has been the one for August and September. We'll see you for the live streams in September, and I want to thank you again one last final time for watching all these things. I remind you, you can watch the rest of our content on our YouTube at Salt of the Streets. We also have our Facebook, our Instagram, and at saltofthestreets.com. Everything at Salt of the Streets. We have our own personal social media. I'm at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donavan on Instagram. And Colin is at Big Bird Alfie on both of those things. One last thing, go to the Patreon, again, at Salt of the Streets. Signed up. Go and help us make more, better content just like this. We can make more of it for you. Go there, subscribe, share this with all your friends. Thank you again for watching. Have a great week.
Welcome to the Salt of the Streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat.